Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another science lesson with myself, Miss Franklin, and of course, Squishy. Oh, Squishy's matching my top today. I've got a rainbow top on. Okay, so we're going to start our science lesson off by thinking back to something you would have learnt about probably in year 1. We're going to be thinking about what different animals eat. So some animals just eat plants. If an animal just eats plants, what do we call them? What's that special scientific name that we call them? You're absolutely right. And Squishy knows too. What is it, Squishy? Yep, you're right. It's a herbivore. If an animal just eats plants, it's called a herbivore. What about if an animal just eats meat? Only meat. What is it, year 2? Yes, it is a carnivore. Carnivore. Now, what do we call an animal that eats both plants and meat? A bit like some of us humans. What do we call that? What do we call that? Oh, Squishy's not sure about this one. Do you think you can help Squishy out? What do you think? You're right, year 2. It's called an omnivore. Omnivore. If an animal eats both plants and meat, it is called an omnivore. Okay, right, we're going to play a game now. I'm going to show you an animal and I want you to tell me, so tell the screen, is this a herbivore? So they only eat plants. Is this animal an omnivore? So they eat plants and meat. Or is it just a carnivore? So they only eat meat. Okay, I'm going to show you my first animal is a little deer. What do you think a deer would eat? You're absolutely right. Well done, year 2. A deer would be a herbivore because deers only eat plants. Well done. Okay, next animal then. Oh, what about this one? What about this animal? What do you think a leopard would eat? You're right, a leopard would only eat meat. So a leopard would be a carnivore, and this is the same as all of the big cats. So a lion, a tiger, a jaguar, a panther, all of the big cats would be carnivores because they only eat meat. Okay, what about this one? What about this one? What do you think an elephant would eat? You're absolutely right. An elephant is also a herbivore because elephants only eat plants. Okay, what about this one? This is a baboon. What do you think? What do you think a baboon would eat? Now, this one is a bit different. So a baboon would sometimes eat some plants and sometimes eat meat. So this would be called an omnivore. Well done. And what about us humans? So sometimes I like to eat lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber, fruit, vegetables, but I also eat chicken, meat as well. So I know not all of us humans eat meat, but a lot of us eat plants and meat. So we are also omnivores. Well done, year 2. Okay, so today then we are going to be learning all about food chains. Have you heard of a food chain? Well, don't worry if you haven't, because I'm going to show you now what a food chain is. Okay, so hopefully I'm sharing my screen to you now. Here we go. This will explain to you what a food chain is.
What is a food chain? All living things, including humans, animals, and plants, need energy to live. But where do they get their energy from? The answer is easy. All living things get their energy from food. Plants make their own food with the help of sunlight, air, and water. Animals and humans don't produce their own food, so they need to eat plants or other animals to get energy and survive. They are all part of a food chain. A food chain shows how plants and animals depend on each other as their source of food. For instance, a caterpillar eats plants, mice eat caterpillars, and owls eat mice. There, a perfectly simple food chain. And we can see food chains happening underwater too. Algae is eaten by small fish. Small fish are eaten by bigger fish. And bigger fish are eaten by sea lions, who are then eaten by sharks. There are lots of different food chains taking place around us, but food chains usually start with a plant and finish with a big, hungry animal. Like me.
There we go. So that is what a food chain is. And I'm just going to show you a little bit more information now about food chains. Okay, oh, let me go back to the start. Okay, so food chains. So do you remember the 7 life processes? So we learnt about these a while ago. These are the things that all living plants and animals have to do. These processes tell us if something is alive. Do you remember that? So we had Mrs. Gren, that's how we remember the life processes. We've got movement, respiration, so breathing, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. So today we're going to be looking at nutrition. Nutrition is all about food. All living things need food to be able to survive, including us. Food gives living things energy. So when you feel like you're really energetic to go for a run on the playground, that's because you've had food as your source of energy. So they use to carry out the other life processes like moving and growing. So food is really important. Green plants make their own food. They use sunlight, water, and air. Animals are not able to make their own food. So how do you think animals get their food? Have a little think, pause, and then tell the screen. Some animals get their food from eating plants. We've talked about these animals. The animals that just eat plants are called, you've got it, herbivores. Can you think of some herbivores? Pause the video and tell the screen. Well done, Year 2. You thought of lots of different herbivores. Fantastic. Can you think of some of the different things they could eat? Well done. So these animals are all herbivores. They only eat plants. We've got kangaroos, rabbits, sheep, giraffes, turtles, and horses and butterflies. And there are lots more animals as well that are herbivores. And they eat all these different plants. So as you can see, some of them would eat just leaves. Some would eat bamboo. We've got some that would eat acorns. They might eat berries from the trees, different bits of fruit. Okay. So some animals get their food from eating other animals. Do you remember what these animals are called? Well done, Year 2. They are called carnivores. And we talked about some of the big cats being carnivores, but also things like owls would be carnivores too. Can you think of any other carnivores? Animals that just eat meat? Can you think of some of the things that they could eat? Well done. So these animals are all carnivores. Cats, sharks, snakes, eagles, different birds of prey, tigers, the big cats, and they would eat other animals, so like rabbits, mice, frogs, deer, fish. So these different animals also eat other animals to be able to survive. It's just the circle of life, really. If you've ever seen The Lion King, that's one of my favourite songs, The Circle of Life. That's a good song. But that's all it is. It's just a circle of life, and other animals have to eat other animals to be able to survive. Some animals get their food from eating both plants and animals. Do you remember what we call that? You're absolutely right, Year 2. They are called omnivores. And remember, we are omnivores too. Can you think of any other omnivores? A brown bear, you can see there that they would be omnivores as well because they eat some plants and meat as well. Can you think of the different things that they would eat? Well done. So these other animals are omnivores. So we've got, I can see a sloth on there, hedgehog, raccoon, badger, pig, mouse or rat, sorry. And then they would eat other plants and animals sometimes too. Are humans herbivores, carnivores or omnivores? Well, we talked about this, didn't we? So most humans are omnivores because we eat both plants and meat, but some humans choose to just eat plants, so they would be herbivores. So what is a food chain? So we just watched that video about food chains. A food chain shows how each animal gets its food. Food chains are one of the ways that living things depend on each other to stay alive. And we've just watched that clip already. The arrows in a food chain mean is eaten by, and that's really important because you need to know which way the arrows go. So as you can see here, the arrow goes from the caterpillar to the bird to the cat. And that means is eaten by. So the caterpillar is eaten by the bird and the bird is eaten by the cat. Okay. Each food chain starts with a green plant. Green plants are called producers. Year 2, can we all say producers? Well done. Because they produce their own food. They use sunlight, air and water to create their own food by a fancy process called photosynthesis. And that's how they get their energy and that's how they grow. So all animals are called consumers. Year 2, can we all say consumers? Well done. Because they consume their food by eating plants and other animals. So we have producers, which are the plants, and then we have the consumers, which are the things that eat the plants. Animals that eat other animals are called predators. The animals that they eat are called prey. Okay, so these are some very, very fancy science words that we need to learn. So remember, the predator is the animal that eats the other animals, and then the animal that's being eaten is the prey. Okay. What is a food chain? So there are food chains in all kinds of habitats. We've been thinking about lots of different habitats, haven't we? We talked about the ocean, we talked about rainforests, deserts, tropical, woodland. In all of these places, there will be food chains. So as you can see, there's an example here. What animals or what plants can you see? What can you see in the first food chain? You're right, we've got a berry. Then we've got a little mouse that would eat the berry. Remember, the arrow means eaten by. The mouse is eaten by the snake. The snake would be eaten by the eagle. And then the one underneath, we've got some grass. Grass is eaten by cows. And then cows are eaten by some humans. So food chains, as you can see, the top one has 4 things in the food chain. The bottom one has 3. So they can vary depending on how many different animals and plants there are in the food chain. So I wonder if you could just pause the video and have a go at drawing a food chain using some of the plants and animals that you can see on the screen. Give it a go. Well done, Year 2. So I wonder what you came up with. So some of you might have started with the grass. You might have then drawn an arrow to the rabbit. That's what I did. And then I drew an arrow to the fox because the grass is eaten by the rabbit and then the rabbit would be eaten by the fox. So that was my food chain that I drew on that one, but you could have drawn other ones too. I wonder what you came up with. Okay. So here's another one that you can have a go at. So it says rearrange these living things to make 2 food chains. I wonder if you could have a little go at this one as well. And have a think about which habitat the food chains belong in. What might you start with? Have a little think. Okay, well done, Year 2. Okay, so I'm going to show you now. First of all, there are a couple of games you can play on the internet that are all about food chains if you want to help with your learning. So this one is on, I think it's on BBC Bitesize. First, it tells you to select a plant, so the producer. Then it asks you to select the consumer, and then the other consumer, the predator. So I will post these links on your timetable so you could have a go at these games as well if you would like to help you. Okay? And then when you've had a go at that, it's then time to start your activity. So your activity for today is going to be a sheet that looks similar to this. I've just drawn it out. Okay, you've got 3 boxes. Some of you might have 4 as well, depending on how confident you're feeling. If you're feeling really super confident and you want to do a longer food chain, there is that option, or you can just stick with the 3 boxes. So remember, in this box, you're starting with the producer, so a plant. And then in this box, you are drawing a consumer. And then in this box, you are drawing, this would be the predator. Okay? And then underneath here, it asks you to write down which habitat this food chain would be found in. So where do you think my first one would be found? Tell the screen, what do you think? Oh, Squishy knows. What is it, Squishy? Yeah, you're absolutely right. And well done, Year 2. It is the woodland. You would find that in the woodland. Okay. So now I'm going to have a go at drawing another food chain. So I'm going to do one, and this time it's going to be one in the ocean. Okay, so in this box here, I'm going to draw my plant, which is going to be some seaweed. And I can label it seaweed. And then I've got my arrow going across. This is my producer, my arrow going across. And there might be some fish that want to come along and eat the seaweed. That's my consumer. Remember, this means eaten by, so seaweed is eaten by fish. And then there might be a big, scary shark come along. Oh, looks a bit small. Sorry, I should have drawn it a bit bigger. It would normally, obviously, a shark would be bigger than the fish. So then the fish is eaten by the shark. And the habitat that you would find this in would be Year 2. Yep, you're right. It would be the ocean. The ocean would be the habitat. So there we go. There's my 2 food chains. And that is what you are going to do. You're going to draw 2 food chains, and it can be any that you think of. And if you play those games and that gives you some other ideas, that's great. Squishy and I are really looking forward to seeing your amazing work all about food chains. And remember those special science words. We have the producer, the consumer, the predator who eats the prey. Those are the 4 words I want you to try and remember. And I will check if you remember them next time. Okay, well done, everyone. Have a brilliant day. Bye.